Hello everyone, this is the installation manual for the mobile neural assessment project. The first thing that we're going to take care of is to review the steps in order to set up the backend for the application. As you can see here, we have different elements that we're going to need. We got to make sure that whatever version is describing here, that's the exact version that is being used. As if a different one is installed, the application will not properly run. So the first thing that we have is the MySQL and MySQL Workbench, and we have to make sure the version is 8.0.28. As you can see, I have it installed over here. Then we will need the Ultimate Edition from IntelliJ with our FIU email. So if you have another school email, you should be able to get the version for free. Then within IntelliJ, we're gonna install the GWT plugin, which is essentially is a toolkit that it helps optimize browser-based applications. And as you can see here, I have IntelliJ open. And if we go into the plugin section, so you guys can see, we have the GWT version installed. Okay. After that, we have to download version 9 of Tomcat, and then also the Java development kit. We're gonna also create an account with Oracle with Java in order so we can download the whole package. And a specific version of GWT 2.7 that we just need to save this folder into any specific place in the computer, but make sure that we don't delete that folder because we're gonna need it for the setup later on. And finally, we're gonna need Git in order to clone and works on the repositories needed to run the project. After you do this initial setup of all these elements, the only thing that we need to do after that is just download the schema for the SQL. And then at the end, once you got everything running with the proper version, you should be able to go ahead and access. To go ahead and access the database with all the information that we need so the application can be properly run, as you can see over here. So now we're gonna have Anthony that he's gonna explain the setup of the crowd platform and the next step for the backend.
Okay, so to compile and run the backend, it's important that you first clone this crowd platform repository. And then once you do that, you're going to want to save it in a location that you can always come back to. Same thing with the GWT plugin, as Kevin had mentioned. And then you want to go to IntelliJ and open that folder that you had just downloaded or cloned for the crowd platform. And then you're going to want to go to File, Project Structure, facets, and then GWT. And then once you're on GWT, you're gonna want to make this file path go straight to where you had that GWT plugin downloaded, or that folder downloaded. Sorry. You have to make sure that it was unzipped, and then once you do that, you will have a pop-up that says Fix. You're gonna want to click that, and then after, you're gonna want to click OK. Go back to File, Project Structure, and go to SDKs. Now when you're in SDKs, you're going to want to add the 1.8 JDK that you installed by pressing the plus button and adding it. And then you're going to want to click OK once again, go back to File, go back to Project Structure, and go to Modules. Okay? And you're going to want to go through each individual module here. And what you're going to want to do is in the Sources tab, make sure the source folder is blue and marked as a source for each one. So you're going to go through the modules here, and then if it has a source folder like this, you're going to want to click it and click Sources to make sure it's marked as blue as a source folder. And then you do that for each of these. And then on the File Explorer on the left that shows the different files in the project, you're going to want to right click CoreOS REST API, right? And you're going to want to go down to Maven and click Reload Project. This will download all the necessary dependencies. Then you're going to want to go back into Project Structure modules again, but this time you're going to want to click dependencies. Now, in this section, you're going to want to click the plus button and select module dependency. Okay? And then you're going to make sure that the modules have the following dependencies in doing so, right? So when we go to CoreOS Core, for example, you're going to want to make sure that it has, well, it doesn't have module dependency, sorry. And then you're going to want to go to CoreOS Storage, and then you're going to want to make sure that has CoreOS Core. You're going to add that dependency. For CoreOS FCM, you have to make sure that it has CoreOS Core and CoreOS Storage. For CoreOS Fitbit, you have to make sure it has CoreOS Core and CoreOS Storage as well. For CoreOS REST API, you have CoreOS Core, CoreOS Storage, CoreOS FCM, and CoreOS Fitbit. And then for CoreOS Web, you're going to want to make sure you have CoreOS Core and CoreOS Storage. Then you click OK. Then you're going to want to go back to project structure. You're going to want to go to artifacts and select CoreOS REST API War Exploded. Now, in the folders on the left, you're going to want to expand WebINF and then classes. You're going to want to place the compile outputs here on the right side from, you're going to want to place the compile outputs of CoreOS Core, CoreOS Storage, CoreOS FCM, and CoreOS Fitbit into this folder here where the classes are. Okay? And then you're going to want to place the library files of CoreOS FCM and CoreOS Fitbit into the WebINF lib folder. Okay, so it would look like this in the lib folder. Now, you're going to want to create two files called system properties in the project. And so here's one as an example. And you're going to place them in CoreOS REST API web content WebINF, which is this right here. So it's in the REST API in web content WebINF. And you're going to want to place the other one in CoreOS Web. So CoreOS Web War WebINF. Here it is. And the files should be identical and contain the username and password for your local MySQL database. And make sure that MySQL is running on the proper port, the 3306 port, as seen here. So now we're going to move on to editing the configurations. So what you're going to want to do is go to Run, Edit Configurations, and then you're going to select CoreOS Web. Next to the Application Server field, you're going to click Configure. Okay? And then you're going to click the plus sign, and you're going to select the folder where you installed Tomcat 9. Now you're going to do the exact same thing for CoreOS REST API, so it looks like this. You can see that the application server runs on Tomcat 9.0.85. Okay. Now the CoreOS web server and the REST API can be selected to run in the Run tab. So come here, you can run them both. And after running the CoreOS web, you want to make sure to register with an email and password. So to create studies, you must go to the MySQL workbench, open the users table. So let's open the workbench here. We're going to log into the database. And so over here in CoreOS, where we created the schema, you're going to go to the users table and set the state of your account. So one way you can do this is, so you're going to want to come here, you're in the users table, and you're going to want to set the state on your account from 0 to 1. This is what allows you to log in and create studies on CoreOS. And so when running the web API, you can use Postman to contact the endpoints by sending REST request to the localhost 8080 REST API. Um, then to test an endpoint, you're going to find the base path of the service class and then add the path of the individual method. For example, in the study service.java class, the base path is /study, and the method path to get the list of the open public studies is list/open/public. And then after you have tested your endpoints with Postman, you can then go on to begin the compilation and running of the Flutter application, which Kevin will now explain.
Perfect. So once we have the whole setup of the backend ready, then at this point we can start actually running the Flutter application. So in order to do this, we need to, of course, complete all the steps that were mentioned before. And before we can even start running the Android Studio application, we need to install Flutter. As you can see, you can go directly into the website. Here you will select the platform that you're currently using to install the software, and just make sure that you follow the instructions that are listed here. So for example, I'm going to use a sample as a desktop for a Windows computer, and you have to make sure that the minimum requirements are met in order for the application to run. We highly advise, especially for the memory, to not use the minimum, use the recommended value or anything higher, as the application will consume a decent amount of memory and it might slow down your entire system. So we advise to the recommended and if possible higher than this. So essentially you're gonna follow the instructions on how to install everything. Here we personally use Android Studio, so we follow the instructions for Android Studio. Here we install the Flutter SDKs that are needed, and we essentially need to follow all the instructions that you can see over here. At the end of the day, once you have everything installed, you can actually check to see if your system is ready just by opening Flutter, opening Android Studio under the terminal. There's going to be a command that is called Flutter Doctor. And what it does is a basic check of the minimum requirements needed in order to run Flutter properly. And as you can see, once everything is set up, you should have check marks with all of the sections. If by any chance there's anything that it's missing, you must solve this problem before you can start actually running the application. Um, at this moment, once we have all the basic installations from Flutter ready, we can go ahead and actually start running the application per se. The only small changes that we have to make is in the Koyos API Dart file. We need to change the base URL to whatever is stated in here. If we want to run it as an Android emulator, we need to select this one. And if we want to do it with an iOS emulator, we need to change it to this URL that we have in here. After all this has been made, we do a Flutter pub run, runner build, and this essentially just makes sure that the dependencies are correct and that all the Flutter settings are needed, are active or in place in order to do the in order to run the application. The last element that we have to set up is the configuration. As you can see here, the configuration will be something like, I'm sorry. We have to make sure that we select Flutter. We need to name it, you can name it whatever you want. For the Dart encryption file, as you can see here, we're using the main Dart file. So that's the project that you want to run. You select that as the Dart entry point. And once you have everything ready, you will have to select all the tasks that will appear in this section. Make sure that all of them are selected. And once all that is set up, you click apply and OK. When that happens, you will be able to see something like this. Okay, at this point in time, you know that you have the basic configuration ready. Now, the only thing that we need to do is go ahead and select the emulator that we're going to be using. We personally downloaded a specific one with certain settings, so that way it can run the best. But of course, at the end of the day, you can go ahead and select whichever you want. This is the one that we use. It's an emulator for a Pixel 8 Pro with a Tiramisu Privacy Sandbox. Okay? So once we have this set up and everything is connected, we can go ahead and run the project, and then we'll see the emulator functioning. The only thing that we need to keep in mind that in order for this to run properly, we need to also make sure that we download the coils flutter repository, because here it has all the information that we need in order to properly run the application. As you guys can see, I already have the emulator ready. So when I go ahead and click run, you guys can see under device managers, just one moment that it's loading. As you can see, it's launching all the necessary settings in order for the application to properly run. And we just give it a moment. Depending on if this is the first time that you run the project, keep in mind that it could take a little bit, because there's a lot of plugins and dependencies that needs to be checked. Just be patient, and as long as you follow the instructions properly, and of course you have the latest versions and everything, follow each step accordingly, didn't skip anything. Within the few minutes, you should be able to go ahead and see the run of the application. So now just let's give it a moment. Also, the speed on how fast it will run, it depends on your actual system as well. So if you have one, this is why we mention or we recommend to use the recommended memory that Flutter mentions, or actually something beyond that, because the closer it is to the minimum, the slower it will run, and it will make the application really it will make it crash and it will lag a lot. So again, we highly advise to run with a computer that has enough memory and power to run this type of applications. And of course, it might, like I mentioned, it might take a while. The other thing is we're gonna pay attention to this, the running Gradle, ensure that it's actually running and that we don't see any blocking errors. This is just about the Gradle that the method for the Gradle that is being used. This is nothing to be concerned about. This is just an update that needs to be done. As you can see, look, here is slowly it's running. Then here we have the device, and once everything is ready, as I mentioned, you should be able to see something similar to this, which is essentially the Colors Flutter application. And essentially, yeah, once we have, like I mentioned, then at this point in time, we should be good to go to proceed to start reviewing the application. If you have any questions on how to run the software, please refer to the to one of the other videos that we have available. That essentially is just a demo on how it will look like. Thank you so much, and hope you enjoyed this video.